Welcome to the Emerging CyberSec Professional at the Koffee Conversation Show, powered by the Emerging India Forum and a tech partner, Prime Infotech Solution. Today's theme is Data Privacy Unplugged, Navigating Data in a Digital World. And we have our expert speaker based in UK, Manchester, Jamal Ahmed, an internationally recognized privacy expert and best-selling author of The Easy Peasy Guide to the GDPR. With a career spanning over 9 years, Jamal has been at the forefront of guiding organizations and individuals through the complexities of data privacy laws and regulations. He's the founder of Kasian Privacy Experts and also a host podcaster at the Privacy Pros podcast. Jamal is committed to empowering professionals and technologists to become world-class privacy professionals. So, Jamal, welcome to today's Coffee Conversation Show.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, so Jamal, I'll explain to you being divided into three parts. You are aware about the two parts. There's a professional, personal, and there is a surprise rapid fire round.
Okay, sounds like fun.
Yeah. So if you answer those questions wittily, funnily, and very quickly, so you will get this ebook.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Authored by me, Lain Amir Virani. I'm an author of 12 ebooks. How to send it to you, we'll figure it out. I want to give it to you, what do you say, autograph ebook.
Nice.
Okay, so let's begin. So my first question, Jamal, can you share with us the most pivotal moment in your journey that led you to specialize in data privacy and help you to become a globally recognized expert in this field?
Oh, wow, that's quite a big question. What is the pivotal moment? I would say the pivotal moment was when I was still stuck and frustrated, trying to find my way in this. And I remember early on, one of the things I was really passionate about helping was the faith-based charities here in the UK. So they contribute a lot to great projects around the world. And when it comes to data, it seems like they kind of forget that they're asking people to trust them with their money, but in this day and age, people also need to be able to trust you with their personal information. And what I found in my own experience in my circles was that a lot of people stopped giving to certain charities because they didn't trust them with their information. So they would rather keep that money and wait for somebody that's going traveling to give it to them, rather than actually make more donations more regularly with the charities here. And so when I went to the charities to say, hey, I want to help you guys, the first thing they said that they would say to me was, who are you and why should we even listen to you? And that got me thinking, like, who am I and why should they even listen to me? And that's when I realized these people need to know about my reputation. These people need to know about why they need to listen to me and who I am before I even set foot in the door, before they even pick up the phone to have a chat with me. They need to know who I am. And that's what kind of was the pivotal moment. That was, how do I go about making sure that my personal brand, my reputation precedes me? What can I do to make sure that I'm actively promoting this message and helping people? So by the time I even get in front of a potential or prospective client, they already know about me, how impactful the work we do is, and why what we do is so important. So I would say that was probably the pivotal moment, being told, who are you and why should we even listen to you?
That's interesting. Thank you for sharing your pivotal moment. Now, Jamal, with your experience as a privacy consultant across various sectors, that is very interesting. Share us how this journey has been and some interesting highlights which you like to share while dealing with the complexities.
I mean, so much has happened and so much happened so quickly in this industry, so fast and so moving. And in my personal journey as well, there's been so many ups and downs. I would say one of the most recent highlights probably has been becoming an international best-selling author of The Easy Peasy Guide to the GDPR. And the way this book started out was, it was something that was there to really help my clients. So when I was to go and speak to my clients, they would struggle to understand the legalese. They were like, okay, look, we know what the article says. We can Google that ourselves. But what does it actually mean? What do we have to do? How do we operationalize that requirements? We're struggling to understand what it actually means. And so the first thing I did was I just opened up a Google document and literally I just took the article, each article, and I just translated it into everyday easy peasy language. And I wrote it in a way that even my 11-year-old niece could understand at the time. So I was like, if she can understand it, then anyone else should be able to understand it too. And so I started handing that out to my clients. So before we meet and in between meetings, they can actually understand they've got somewhere to reference and look at to get a little bit more clarity. But then what I found was some of the interns at work, they had printed copies on their desk. And I saw them refer to it. So I was like, you know what, this is interesting. Let's see if it can help more people. So I started sharing with some of my mentees. Then it went around all the WhatsApp groups, and then I got people messaging me saying, "Hey, thank you for this." I was like, "How did you even come across it?" Someone sent me a selfie showing that they printed it off and it was actually on the desk. So I was like, "Okay, how can I get this into more people's hands?" And so that's when I decided to have another look at it, improve it, and then turn it into a book and publish it. So I would say publishing that book has been really impactful. Once you become an international best-selling author, the kind of opportunities that grow up, the credibility that it gives you, the authority that it gives you, it's something that is almost second to none. And there is no way you could do any kind of paid advertising or any kind of advertising that gives you that same credibility and leverage and awareness. And the other thing is, by the time people have read the book, they're already really clear on how I speak, how I convey that information. And because they find it so useful, they're more open to actually now working with me either as a mentee or as a client and saying, yeah, that's exactly the kind of person that we need to come and help our organization right now.
Interesting. And our best wishes to your book reaches the nook and every corner of the world, including India also. And we look forward.
Well, we was #1 in India even before the book was released. So we had #1 spot on Amazon in India, and it's actually doing quite well. You know what the challenge is with India is we had to take it off Amazon for some time because there's some dodgy publishers there. They started making a replica of the book. Now, I wouldn't mind if they make a replica of the book. Like the royalties is not what this is about. But the problem is the quality of the print. They spell so many basic spelling mistakes, and it just devalues the whole book, and it just makes me look bad if someone doesn't know that this is actually a fake copy of the book. And so that was a bit challenging because I've never experienced somebody to rip off a book like that. I've seen handbags, I've seen other expensive items, but a book is the first time I've come across that. I found it quite interesting. It was a little bit annoying at the same time because the quality was so bad that I didn't want that poor quality associated with me.
Yes. What do you say? A book being copied and being ripped off. This is a very interesting insight you shared. People should be aware how to make what do you say? When they make designs replica, they should also follow to the T of replicating a book. So that, but this also shows that you have arrived globally.
Yeah.
People are following you. So you have arrived. So you have more work and more things so people can follow you. And there's a replica of Jamal Ahmed, a robot. So let's continue. So yeah. So Jamal, my next question will be, how does name of Kaizen privacy experts came up? So what is the story behind this name of the company and what are the activities you do over there?
All right, great question. So how did we come up with the name of the company? So there's a Japanese word, which is Kaizen. And Kaizen is continuous improvement. And what you look at is you look at the micro gains that you can make over time so you can continuously improve. And the idea, the way I like to think about it is if you can improve 1% every day, then by the end of the year, that's 365 days of 1% improvement, which is really, really powerful compared to staying in the same place. And so I'm a big believer in Kaizen and someone that subscribes to that philosophy. The challenge is when you have a business, your business needs to be findable, it needs to be unique, and it needs to stand out. So when you go on Companies House here in the UK to register a company, all of the variants of Kaizen are taken. And when you go on to get a website, all the Kaizen domain names are taken. So I was like, okay, this isn't going to work. So I was like, you know what? Let's just go with Kaizen. It sounds close enough to remind me of the philosophy. So every time I talk about my company and I mention Kaizen, I know that's a trigger to remember to continuously improve every single time. There's no such word in the world that means Kaizen. So it's going to be unique. And actually, it could be unique enough to actually stand out and stay in people's mind. And so there we go. KZN was there. Privacy experts, obviously, is very important. People understand what the company does, and that needs to be part of the name. So therefore, that's how I came up with KZN Privacy Experts. And what we do at KZN Privacy Experts is we help leading global companies, people who are industry leading companies. That's who we particularly look to help. And what we do is we go and support their existing data protection resources. So sometimes they'll have a team, sometimes they'll have one or two people. Regardless of how big or small the team is, we go and support that team with specialist data privacy projects and data privacy guidance or a particular challenge that they might be having, and we take them through that process. We also help companies to actually bring their privacy programs to fruition. So for example, right now in the Middle East, the PDPL has been starting to come in force, or is about to come in force in countries like Saudi Arabia. And so a lot of the work we're doing now is actually helping some of those listed companies to create their data privacy programs. But we don't want to do tick box compliance. So when we're actually going to work with some of these companies, we're competing with the big four, KPMG, Deloitte. So how are we winning those contracts? As such a small boutique firm compared to one of those giants. And it all comes down to our approach. And our approach is we don't want to do tick box compliance exercises. We don't want to give you a suite of templates that don't work for your business. Rather, what we want to do is to help you go beyond compliance so that you can actually create trust between your customers, create trust in your team. And that trust, once you have that trust, will help you to cultivate and inspire confidence in your team, in your abilities internally, and also externally from all of your external stakeholders, the regulators, the suppliers, the partners you want to work with, the investors that you want to seek, and also the customers or the clients or the patients that you actually want to serve. And when you bring those two things together, it ultimately helps you to have a greater impact. And that's the whole reason you set up an organization, isn't it? Is to really have an impact because you believe the product or the service that you're offering can make the world a better place. And so that's where we go. We work with leading companies to bring data protection in a way that's easy peasy, in a way that everybody can understand. So we get everybody's buy-in and everyone knows what they need to do to cultivate trust, inspire confidence, and ultimately create a bigger impact.
Interesting. Now, let's continue our conversation. My next question will be your journey as a podcaster, Privacy Pro podcaster. How do you decide the topics, which these topics will be relevant, and how fulfilling has this journey been as a podcaster?
That's a great question. So we had no intention of doing a podcast. We just was like, how can we make sure that we don't have to have the same conversation over and over again? And one of the things that I used to do pre-pandemic, certainly anyway, was I used to invite people to lunch, to coffee, to dinner. And the reason I used to do that is because I used to want to learn from them. I wanted to learn from their experience because I understand that my experience, my education is very limited to what I've done myself. And so also when it comes to solving problems, when it comes to industry, it's very limited. It's only limited to what I have. But the more I speak to experts, leading people in the industry from different industries with different backgrounds, from different cultures, the better rounded professional I'll be and the better equipped I'll be to deliver value to my clients. And so one of the things I used to really love doing is having coffees, having lunches, and having dinners with people. So I could have a conversation and actually get to know them and learn from them too. The challenge with that was, it was great for me, but that's what happened. It stayed behind closed doors. It stayed in my mind. And so what we realized is how can we actually amplify the message and amplify the knowledge and the skills and the expertise of these amazing people? The best way to do that is to record the conversation and record it in a way where we can actually share it with the rest of the world, people who are interested in privacy, absolutely free of charge as a gift from us to them. And so that's how the podcast came along. It was actually saying, how can we capture the value from those conversations without it disappearing, but then amplify it to get a wider reach and to help more people around the world. And ultimately, what we're trying to do at KZN Privacy Experts and the Privacy Pros Academy is fulfill our vision. And our vision is to create a world where every woman, every man, and every child enjoys freedom over their personal information. And in the early days, we thought, we're going to change the world through the consultancy and we're going to go and work with every single company in the world. But we realized that physically that's not possible. We don't have enough time to do that. But what we can do is we can create a community of world-class professionals who are all coming together with the same cause. They want to be world-class professionals because they want to help their organizations do the right thing, when it comes to handling people's information. And if we can have enough people empowered in enough organizations alongside what we do at the consultancy, we're not going to be that far away from creating a world where every woman, every man, and every child does actually have freedom over their personal information. And so the podcast is a way of actually raising that message, helping people who are in different parts of the world, focusing on privacy, governance, risk compliance, whatever it is, where they act on privacy. And even if they're not in privacy and they want to get into it, is to explain from the best people in the industry how to progress their careers, the kind of challenges that we're dealing with right now, how to think about certain things, and just very interesting stories. And also, if there's something happening in the news that's quite big, that's an update, we give them an opportunity to really learn about that and have an expert's insight and views on that, so they can balance that against whatever else they've come across in their own opinions. So that's how the podcast came along. How has the journey been? It's been a sensational journey. I've loved it. I've made so many great friends. We go out to, I think, over 149 countries now. So the reach is absolutely amazing and it's consistent. So when you look at our unique downloads, you can see that every month is consistent and it's growing slowly. But the most important thing, that once people start listening to the podcast, they're actually hooked, which means we're delivering great value. And I'm looking forward to meeting more amazing people and having more amazing people on that podcast.
Meeting with subject experts, not only in India, but globally, education, meeting, and having lovely conversations on different topics, knowing about their journey, where they've been, and where they want to go. Now, continuing conversation, Jamal, you are coming up with your signature program, the Privacy Pro Accelerator Program. Let us tell us something about this program and anything you want to share and to invite who are the target audience to join for this program.
Okay, great question. So the Privacy Accelerator Program, we've been running that for 3 years now. And that is based on my experience of coming into the industry. It's also based on my experience of helping people like my brother and my friends really come in to the industry and in a short space of time really accelerate their careers and get into some senior level roles. So one of the things that I used to do before I even came into data privacy, before I even got into compliance, in fact, was I was very big on psychology and mindset. And so I think in my early 20s, I found myself learning about neuro-linguistic programming and life coaching and performance consulting. And I'm also a qualified Ericksonian hypnotherapist. So I used to use all of that to help people get performance results. And the reason I gave that career up is because I found that too many people was coming to me with problems and fixing problems. And I'm more about actually finding solutions and overcoming challenges. And so I was like, okay, I've really had great fun doing what I want to do, but this isn't where I see myself long-term. And so I want to do something a little bit more interesting. So I had that coaching background. I've always enjoyed helping people. I've loved helping people. And through my own journey, I know exactly what the challenges are and how to overcome those challenges to succeed. So one of the challenges that you'll see here in the UK is that unless you are white, unless you are a man, unless you are middle-aged from a middle-class background, it's very difficult to break into the legal area, especially data privacy. And even when you look at some of the events here, you can see that the diversity isn't great. And so people like me, we're left at the door. In fact, there was one occasion, and I've shared this story a few times now, where I went to one of these events and somebody mistook me for being part of the catering team because clearly I was the wrong demographic to be a privacy professional. And things like that actually are more little defining and pivotal moments in your career, because it reminded me that I need to go back and I need to really find a way of bringing more diversity into the industry, bringing more people from minority backgrounds, bringing more women into the industry. And that's what the Privacy Pros is also, Privacy Pros Academy is also about. But going back to your question in terms of the Accelerator Program. So one of the things I discovered early on through mentors, through books, through programs is there's 5 things that you need to be successful. Number one is, and you need to do it in this order. Number one is you actually need the knowledge, right? Without knowledge, nothing's going to happen. But having that knowledge is great. I've got so much knowledge behind me in the books there, but unless I have the skill to apply that knowledge, it actually becomes useless. So those 2 skills are the first 2 things that we need to focus on, is the knowledge and the skills. And once you have the knowledge and the skills, nobody can come and take that away from you. That's the value that you have. That's the wealth that you can recreate using those knowledge and skills. So those are the first two things. Once you have the knowledge and the skills, the next thing you need to focus on is what are the resources that I need to collect? What are the resources I need to be able to access to help me to leverage my knowledge and my skills? And then we also need to start thinking about your network, right? So there's so many people that will say your network is your net wealth, but the more people you know, the more of the right people that you know in the right places, the more your opportunities are going to, the greater your opportunities are going to be. So the more opportunity you're going to have to present greater opportunities and add more value. And finally, you need a personal brand. So your reputation, you need that reputation to precede you. And everybody has a personal brand, whether you like it or not. So I've known and I've seen from my own experiences and other successes that I've had that those are the 5 key things that you need to focus on. So the Privacy Pros Accelerator Program focuses on those 5 core pillars plus the mindset one, which I think is even more important. So for me, before you even start thinking about knowledge and skills, the thing that comes before that is having the right mindset. You need to think like the person who is great at this. You need to make the right decisions. You need to have the right habits. You need to have the right physiology and the right posture and speak like them and think like them and act like them. You can't get to where you need to get to being who you are, because your best level of thinking has got you to where you are now. So you need to change your mindset and adapt, and you need to really grow and become the next best version of yourself and start thinking and acting like them. So the first pillar on the Privacy Pros Academy Accelerator Program is actually the mindset. And when you look at mindset, you can see there's people that have a growth mindset, people that have a fixed mindset, and a lot of people don't actually understand the way they think is driven by their values. They have an internal decision-making system. They have things like deletion, distortion, generalization, which filters the information that their brain seeks. And because none of this is taught and most people don't actually understand the value of investing in their mindset and psychology and stuff, most people just accept I am the way I am. That's it. They don't know that the brain is actually, we have neuroplasticity, which means you can create whichever habits and thought processes you want any single time. So the first thing we focus on is the foundation. For me, is the most important thing is making sure people have the right mindset. And as part of that right mindset, what happens is people go through life. Sometimes they have negative experiences, and that starts eating away at their self-confidence. It starts eating away at their confidence. Then they start making self-limiting decisions like, I'll never be successful, or I could never be a great privacy pro. I'll never earn 100K. And so the subconscious starts believing them. So what we do is we get rid of all of those limiting decisions. We get rid of all of the things that are holding themselves back. And we really help them to readdress and realign their values and start thinking like a world-class privacy professional. So now that's the basics, that's the foundation. They have a really strong sense of self. They understand what they're doing, why they're doing it. They have the intrinsic motivation. They also have all of the habits that we talk about. One of the things I encourage them to do is to reflect and journal about their gratitude, what they're grateful for every morning, and the 5 wins they've had every day. So every night they go to bed as a champion, and every morning they wake up as a winner. So we do that for 90 days. So that's the foundation, is the mindset. Once we have the mindset, obviously you need to know your stuff. So the knowledge we spoke about, we want to make sure that they're actually subject matter experts who know their stuff, and not just like a mile wide, but we want to go a mile deep so they know all of the intricacies and how to look at this from different perspectives, but not also just how to look at it, how to explain it to other people so they also understand. And I think it was Albert Einstein that said, if you can't explain something simply enough, you haven't understood it well enough. And so we want to make sure that everyone that comes to the Privacy Pros Academy, they understand things well enough so they can explain it simply in a way where it makes it easy for their colleagues, for their customers, for anyone they're working with to really understand what the requirements are, why it's important, and what they need to do about it. So we focus on that subject matter expertise in a way where they can explain those things clearly, that really boost their self-confidence too. And now the third thing that we need to focus on now is, we spoke about it earlier, is the skills. So there's 4 key competencies or 4 key things that I've identified that most businesses, or in fact, every single business that processes personal information is going to need help with. And if you want to be a privacy professional, then these are the 4 core areas that you need to be competent in. So number 1 is you need to know how to do data mapping and records of processing activities. Like you have to understand how the data is flowing, where it could be shared, how it's stored, what happens at the end of the deletion, all the way from one end to the other. And you have to be able to represent that to different people in the business and different areas. So you need to know how to do the data mapping, and then also make sure that you have a record of processing activities where there is a single source of truth for you, for the rest of the business, for vendors, for stakeholders, even for the regulators to come and understand. Number 2 is you need to convey that information in a way that's easy to understand. In fact, it's a legal requirement under the GDPR to have a privacy notice that is clear for the person to understand. So you need to become an expert on drafting privacy notices that don't seem like long legal documents, but are actually very easy and convey that information in a very clear way. So those are the first two competencies. Then, because people are reading the privacy notice, they might have, they'll be aware of their rights. And so you need to know how to respond to the different rights, when they apply, when they don't apply, how to actually create processes and documentation to support your level of compliance with that and really support the business with that. So the third skill that we really focus on, the practical skill that we focus on, is responding to data subject requests. And finally, all of this is all about risk. Businesses want to innovate, they want to bring in new processes, they want to bring in new technologies. And so when that happens, we need to be able to know how to do dependable DPIAs, data protection impact assessments. So on the third part of the program, we focus on really giving them the practical skills and making them, working with them to do data protection impact assessments, draft privacy notices, come onto some of our client calls and actually do the interviews and do the actual records of processing activities, and also be able to write those privacy notices. So by the time they leave, they're equipped to be able to handle those key challenges that businesses are going to face. And one of the things that you'll find a lot of people talk about is, oh, I can't get hired because I lack the experience. The thing here is, this is a mindset challenge. You're not getting hired because you lack the experience. You're not getting hired because you can't demonstrate you have competence. And so this is the best way to overcome that experience challenge, is by demonstrating you are actually competent. So that's the third thing we do. The next thing we focus on is the personal brand. Like I said, one of my pivotal stories was people need to know who I am and what I do before I even get to meet them. Now, whether you like it or not, you and I and every single person that's on LinkedIn or has a CV has a personal brand, whether they like it or not. Now, it's either you leave it to chance and you be mediocre and be the same as everyone else, or you take responsibility for it and you say, you know what, I know I'm going to have a personal brand, so I'm going to take responsibility for making sure that I can demonstrate the value that I bring to the table. And so we really work on helping our mentees on the Accelerator Program focus on their personal brand. And it turns out I might know a little thing or two about personal branding. LinkedIn have awarded me with a badge for it. So we focus on the personal branding. And as part of the personal branding, what we also focus on is the art of communication. How do we communicate with people of the different styles? How do we focus on public speaking? When we talk about public speaking, we're not saying, look, I necessarily going to be on stage at a conference, but you're on stage every single day in the boardroom. You're on stage every single day when you're delivering training. You're on stage every single day when you're actually trying to get people, by persuading and influencing them to take actions. So we really focus on the art of persuasion. We focus on the art of communication. So by the time they're done with that part of the program, they are easily able to build rapport. They're easily able to persuade and influence and lead and show the value that they bring. You back that up with a personal reputation. And the only thing that's left now is to create the conditions for success.
Interesting.
Yeah, so create the conditions for success. How do we do that? We put them into a community of like-minded people on a similar journey, and also the people that you listen to on my podcast, the people who are leading experts in the industry, and we put them in those communities, and that only raises their self-esteem. It only raises all of their levels, and now they have everything that they need to be successful. So that's basically the Privacy Pros Accelerator Program.
Wow. So from mindsets to education to implementation, branding, so many things you cover. That is superb. So someone coming to a program, he will not only learning theory but practical aspects of being a privacy expert. So as you said, you got this honored by LinkedIn Top Voice badge on personal branding. So congratulations for that. Now you have got 3 badges. That is very interesting.
Yes.
Yes, that is a recent achievement you got. Now we are very curious. How does one get this LinkedIn Top Voice badge, and what are the steps to be followed?
Okay, great question. So when you get a LinkedIn Top Voice badge, it's a LinkedIn basically saying we acknowledge you are contributing and your contributions are on these particular topics and you are in the top 4 or 5% of contributors in this topic. So the first thing I would say is identify which areas or which topics you would like to be recognized in, or you'd like to be acknowledged for. And once you found those, start creating really, really valuable posts on those topics. Make sure you're answering questions that people are likely to have, but not just giving the usual answer that people can Google, like your own insights, and break those answers down in a way where people actually understand it, and only make one point per post, because it's social media. No one's here coming here to read an article or read a book on this particular topic. They're scrolling. And so the more valuable contributions that you make through your posts, the more LinkedIn's going to pick that up, and the more it's going to start sharing your content with other people on the platform. That's the way the algorithm works. And one of the things that LinkedIn will look at is your social selling index and say, okay, you're talking about this topic. How many people are liking it? How many of the second connections are liking it? How many people are sharing and commenting on it? And so what you want to do is you want to create content that is informative, but also that people engage with. And the moment LinkedIn picks up that you're doing that and you're an expert in a particular topic, they will write to you and they will say, hey, Amir, we see your contributions in this area. Here are some articles that you can contribute to. And then there'll be like 4 or 5 different articles that they suggest to you. And as long as you go and contribute to those articles, be authentic, be sincere, give genuine advice that's going to help people. If people find those contributions useful, LinkedIn can see that people are reading them, people are liking, people are commenting and engaging with them. And when you get into, I think, the top 4 or 5% of the people on LinkedIn in that particular topic, they will award you with a badge.
Interesting, interesting. Yes, I also started in this journey, and hopefully will be able to follow your process steps and achieve.
Yeah, I've
So
seen the content that you're putting up there. It's absolutely amazing, and it's just a matter of time. Like there's I think over 900 million people on LinkedIn right now. Out of those 900 million, let's say even 1% are actually talking about the same topics. So there's a lot of competition, right? But the most important thing is consistency always
yes,
beats everything
yes,
else. And as long as
yes.
you're showing up consistently, in which you are, and as long as the people who are
Thank
watching you
you.
have ambitions are showing up consistently, then it's just a matter of time. You just got to keep going. And that's where KZen comes in. Small
So
increments,
yes,
consistent.
I'll be asking you about this question in my the personal round over this Japanese philosophy. So hold on. Yeah. So Jamal, you have played role as Chief Privacy Officer for different organizations. So what are the primary challenges you encountered in ensuring compliance with data protection laws, and how did you address them?
Great question. The biggest challenge that I encounter time and time again is the people challenge. The law is very black and white. It tells you what you need to do. And as lawyers or as people who have value system, that there's only one way to do things, the right way to do things, the only way to do things is very simple. This is what the law says. This is what we go and do. But not everyone in the business is a lawyer. Not everyone in the business understands everything in the same way. Everyone is doing the best they can with the knowledge and resources available to them. And some people aren't that knowledgeable or that resourceful. And so you'll find people who either don't understand why this is important or they don't care because they're just focused on their goals, right? Remember, when you go in as a privacy professional, the privacy side of the business, that's your problem. Marketing, they've got numbers to hit, they've got goals to hit. Customer service, they have their own challenges. Technology, they have their own challenges. Everyone is focused on what their challenge is, what their job role is. And so when you go in and you talk about privacy and making changes, you're actually taking them away and distracting them from what they believe they should be focused on. So straight away, you're going to be a little bit unwelcome, unless, of course, they see the value in privacy. And I think the biggest challenge is the people. And the reason that's a challenge is because not enough privacy professionals or not enough organizations focus on it explaining beyond actually being compliant and not getting fined. What is the value that this privacy program is actually bringing to different areas of the business? How is it helping us to have more freedom? How is it helping us to be more flexible? How is it actually helping us to cultivate that trust? And that's the main challenge when you go in, especially when you go in as a consultant. You're already the outsider, right? And they're used to dealing with consultants. Oftentimes, they have bad experience with consultants. It starts off great, but I don't want to go into consultancy, right? You know what happens. So you're already on the back foot. And the biggest challenge is then is trying to build rapport with them and getting their buy-in to buy into what you're doing enthusiastically, with enthusiasm, like, yes, get behind it. Not many people get enthusiastic about data privacy. even less people get enthusiastic about an external person coming in the business. They've been there for 5, 10, 15, 20 years, even sometimes, and explaining why things need to change or how to do something, or telling them what they've been doing for the last 10, 15 years. They can't actually just call anyone they like whenever they like, without making sure they have the right consent or the right permissions in place. What are you talking about? That's the way we've done things. How are we going to hit our targets if we can't do it like that? That's how we do our business. I have 30 people in my team. If we stop doing that tomorrow, then I would have to let all of these people go home. And these are the kind of challenges that you have to have. So the people challenge, I would say, in any privacy project, in any privacy in any company, is always the biggest challenge. The moment you overcome that, then everything else becomes easy, because you now have their buy-in, you have their rapport, they understand you're on the same side, you've shown them, hey, I understand you. And one of the things I talk about on the programs, and you'll hear me talk about this on the podcast and anywhere else, is you have to go and meet them where they are. So you have to be empathetic. We have to make them feel understood so that they now can understand us. So I can't remember who said this, but it's one of the laws that I focus on, is in order for people to understand you, you must first make them feel understood. And so that's one of the things that we also focus on the communication part of the Privacy Pros Academy, is how do we overcome that challenge you're going to have? Because whichever organization you work for, it's the people that run the organization. People are emotional beings. And unless we really get in touch with our emotional intelligence and really focus on that, then you're always going to find that that becomes a barrier and an obstacle. And it actually becomes a lot more stressful for you and them than it needs to be, because nobody wants to go and create problems, and nobody wants to, well, most people don't want to be mean to other people. They just want to get along and have peace and achieve the goals that they set out to achieve.
Wow. So now privacy is all about dealing with people. So now let's talk about people in a company dealing with metadata. If it's not handled properly, so what happens in metadata not dealt properly in MS Office documents and PDF documents, according to you?
Okay, great question. So for anyone that's listening who's not particularly clear on what metadata is, let's explain that first of all. So when it comes to us doing things and activities, let's just say, for example, sending an email, there is content data, and there'll also be metadata associated to that. So the content data of the email will be the subject line, the contents, any attachments, the person I'm sending it to. The metadata from that is how big is the file? At what time was it sent? Any other information about the information in the email that's not the actual content data. So when you look at the metadata, you can see that there's actually a lot of information that could be quite revealing. And I just want us to cast our minds back to, I think, about 2 years ago, around New Year's, Christmas time, when Meta or Facebook or WhatsApp, whichever way you think about them, had to take out an advert on the front page of every single newspaper in India to convince people not to leave. And all of that comes back to metadata. So what WhatsApp wanted to do was combine the metadata from your WhatsApp messages with the metadata from Facebook. And people said, no, that's giving away too much information about us. It's not like they wanted to actually read your messages. They just wanted the metadata. So why was people all over the world migrating away? I think we saw the biggest digital migration we've ever seen in history. And people were moving from WhatsApp and going to other platforms like Signal and Telegram, etc. So what were people concerned about? Now, let me ask you this. If I have access to the metadata on your WhatsApp, if I can see how many contacts that you have, if I can see how frequently you're messaging some of those contacts, if I can see which other groups those contacts are in and which networks those people are in, if I can see how long you take to respond to a certain person and how much longer it takes you to respond to other people, if I can see the times that you're active and you're engaging, if I see how long it takes to respond to certain people and how long it doesn't take you to respond to other people, do you think I need to see the content messages to get a very good idea and a picture of what's actually going on here? And most people said no, but that's too much information, especially if you start taking that and combining with other metadata about the kind of articles I'm looking at, the kind of things I'm liking, my interests, the things I don't actually like. It's too much, it's too revealing, and we're not comfortable with that. And so we're going to protest and we're going to leave until Facebook can come and said, okay, guys, we're not going to do that anymore.
Very interesting. So now let's continue this conversation on metadata. I had recently done a speaker session for cybersecurity professionals on risk mitigation in of metadata in MSF's documents. So there was this conversation happening on forensic audit. So they were concerned by if we clean the documents fully, so all the metadata will go away. So then how will this be helpful for a forensic audit purpose? So what is your take on that?
Great question. So the way I always like to think about this is, what is the problem that we're trying to solve? And what is the easiest way of solving that? And what do we actually need? What are the dependencies to be able to solve those problems? So that's the first way I would look at it, is really defining the problem in a clear way, because one of my mentors taught me a problem well defined is a problem half solved. So already halfway to solving that problem. Now we need to understand, okay, when it comes to metadata, how much of that metadata do we actually need? How long do we need it for? And what is the metadata telling us? And is there a way of getting that information somewhere else? And if there is no other way of getting that information, then who needs access to that information? How long do they need access to it for? What is this metadata telling us? Is there any way of adding technical controls to actually pseudonymize it or to make it more interesting? And if we do need to keep it for longer, how can we keep it in a way where we make sure that the CIA, the confidentiality, the integrity, and the availability of it is preserved? And so it's just asking a series of questions. And if you ask the right questions at the right time to the right people, you'll always get the best, most pragmatic answer to be able to overcome any challenge. In fact, one of the things that I also love to teach my mentees is the quality of your work, in fact, the quality of your life, will be based on the quality of the question that you ask yourself and the people around you.
Interesting. So now, Jamal, you must have come across several misconceptions related to data privacy with your mentees, with companies, different people, different stakeholders. So, how do you address those misconceptions?
Very good question. Again, it's by asking questions. So a lot of people will come up with a misconception or a false belief. And what most people do usually is they'll say, "You're wrong." And they'll say, "No, I'm not, you're wrong. I'm right, you're wrong." And what happens is you just clash like that. And so taking on the philosophies of the mentoring that I've had and the coaching I've had, one of the things that I like is there's a Brazilian martial art called Jiu-Jitsu. And in Jiu-Jitsu, what you're doing is you're actually taking the energy of the other person to guide and manipulate them into going where you need to go. So instead of doing that, they come like this, you go like that, and then you just guide them where you need to get to. And so that's the best way to approach this, is to say, okay, why do you believe that to be true? And just get them to ask questions and then ask them for evidence. So, okay, why do you believe that to be true? Okay, can you give an example of where you've seen that? Or can you give me some evidence of where that's happened before? And where else do you know that? So now they've explained their thinking, and now you can actually ask questions to challenge them. And you also find evidence that you know shows the opposite to be true without telling them they're wrong. But by giving them a story or a situation and asking for their thoughts on it, or asking how that actually ties up with what they're saying over there. So let's say, for example, one of the misconceptions that we have in the industry of people who want to pivot is you need to be a lawyer to be a data privacy professional. So I'd be like, okay, what makes you believe that to be true? And they'll say whatever, whatever the evidence they have, I'll say, okay, that's great. And I'll say, have you met anyone who isn't a privacy, who hasn't got a legal background that's a privacy professional? They're like, no, I've not come across anyone. I'm like, have you come across me before? Yes, I have. I don't have any legal qualifications, but I seem to be doing quite well in the industry. Interesting. And in fact, if you go on my LinkedIn, you can see I have hundreds of mentees from all over the world who actually also seem to be thriving. But forget about me and forget about my mentees. Let's go on the podcast and have a look at some of the leading professionals in the world and see if we can find any people in the industry who are at the top of their game, who have nothing to do with me or the academy. And let's see if they're lawyers now. And then they'll go and look and they'll say, okay, wow, you're right. So you've created a mindset shift without ever arguing with them, telling them they're wrong, but by asking them to produce their evidence and then offering new evidence which overpowers what led them to make that decision to begin with. And you can just take that basic example and highlight that in any challenge that you have or any misconception people have. Is don't go and try and change their mind, because they're not going to listen. Most change that is powerful, that's lasting, and that is actually powerful has to come from within. There has to be an internal shift. And the only way to create internal shifts is either by asking powerful questions, so they start thinking about the answer for themselves, or by telling powerful stories. Those are the two most effective ways I've found in all my years through coaching, mentoring, taking programs, working with some of the best performance coaches around the world is tell powerful stories or ask powerful questions. Those are the two best ways to actually make positive change and impact within someone without trying to force them.
Wow, interesting. So now, Jamal, uh, how has technology helped you to lead a digital enabled life?
Repeat that again, please.
How has technology helped you to lead a digital enabled life?
How does technology enable me to lead a digital enabled life? So that's a really good question. And one of the things that a lot of people don't appreciate is we are now living in the digital age where we need to leverage the digital technology, leverage the things that are available to us. Now, a lot of people say, oh, you know what, it's not the same. There were so many opportunities back in the days. You could go and build a factory and people got really wealthy from doing that. That was the industrial age. And then you talk about people who actually had the property boom before the recession and our time. It's like, oh, it's so hard. But what we don't realize, or what a lot of people face realize is right now, we have something that has never been there before. We have leverage of digital assets. We have leverage over social media assets. And we can really use these platforms in a way where it's never been so easy to create content, to create materials, and to distribute it as far and wide that where it can reach pretty much every corner of the globe. It was always impossible to do that. You had to go and book a hotel room and have a conference and invite people, or you were restricted to how many places you could travel to. But now, just like me and you are connecting digitally, this is going to go out. You're going to put this out. Anyone from anywhere in the world can access this material. So this is really powerful leverage. And so I'm looking for ways of always how can I leverage what I'm doing? How can I amplify what I'm doing in a way that actually serves me and that serves me, the people I'm looking to serve, and also helps me to further my goals and further my reach. And one of the ways of doing that is through the podcast, is through creating YouTube videos, is through getting present on LinkedIn, is through creating great digital resources and products, is through actually finding things that can help us to leverage what we already have using that technology in a way that we wouldn't previously have been able to do ourselves. Or if we try to do those things manually, then it means that, we're going to get a little bit stuck and it's going to slow us down. So I'm always looking for ways of how we can leverage technology to amplify everything that I'm doing for the greater good and in a way that will actually serve me and take me closer towards my purpose.
Interesting. So now, Jamal, given this ever-evolving landscape of privacy laws and regulations globally, how do you stay abreast of the latest developments and how do you incorporate them in your career?
Okay, really good question. Things are always changing. There's always enforcement action. There's always updates to new laws. There's always changes in guidance, and there's lots of very interesting enforcement stories, as well as court cases around the world. And one of the things that people actually find is, oh my gosh, this is so overwhelming. I haven't even caught up on last week, and you're telling me something else has happened this week. And by the time you know it, people get bamboozled and overwhelmed. And so a lot of people do is they'll just tune out of it, or they'll feel that stress. And so at the Privacy Pros Academy, we have a platform, a community platform on school. We have really good professionals on our team. So each of the professionals on my team has a different area that they focus on. And so anything that needs to be updated, anything that's important, I have somebody in my team who is actually going to be aware of that. And then we just say, okay, like if you set up alerts and if you look at all of these things, you see there's so many stories. So say, okay, let's cut through the noise and see how much of this is actually important. That means if we was to go and see a client tomorrow, it would impact the way we work with them or the advice that we give or the approach that we take. And so those key cases, those key enforcement actions, those key regulations, those key updates, we take that and then we make that easy peasy and we just feed that to our community. So that's my source of staying updated, as well as the people at the Privacy Pros Academy. We just make sure that we keep our eyes and ears on the ground, filter out the noise, and just focus on what's important. And I think not enough people focus on good sources of information or what's important. And they take all the information and absorb all of that, forget about how accurate it is, forget about how useful it is. But it just seems to be they have this, condition where more is better rather than quality. So for me, it's more about quality. And that's what we focus on as a team, is making sure that it's all high quality stuff.
Yes, yes. So good insights you're giving across. Now, Jamal, who has impacted you or influenced you from the cybersecurity world?
Wow, you're gonna get me in trouble here. You're gonna get me in trouble
Ah,
here.
yeah.
But I guess
No, please share.
there's definitely one person that I have to name. Her name is Debbie Reynolds. You might know her as the Data Diva.
Yeah.
She's been an instrumental mentor and a supporter throughout my career. In fact, she inspires me so much. When I first came into the industry, I was reading Debbie's contributions. I was watching her videos. I was like, wow, this woman is amazing. She's talking about things that nobody else is talking about. She's so kind. The way she carries herself is so graceful, and she's constantly growing. But every single day, I saw that she was adding value, and I was like, you know, I want to be just like that. And so I decided to reach out to her. We had a chat, and we've become very good friends. We're very supportive of each other's work. But she's somebody that has inspired me from the beginning. She continues to inspire me. She's just such a kind, honest, great human being. And it's easy to find people who have a certain persona on LinkedIn or in public. But then when you see and you meet that person, you have conversation with them regularly, and you can see that actually what they have there isn't doing them justice. They're much better, brighter, a more brilliant person. And if only other people could see that, that's so humbling and inspiring. Because most people, what do we do on social media? We just give the highlights. We just give the best version of ourselves. And when you find someone who's actually doing the opposite of that, not intentionally, just the way she is, and someone's actually more powerful, more magnificent, more kind, more gracious, more everything than they ever portray themselves on social media, you know that you've come across a very rare gem. And so I would have to say David Reynolds has been instrumental, and continues to be. And I'm very grateful that I have a relationship, a professional relationship where we are supporting each other. And she actually has been mentoring me. So that's amazing.
Wow, interesting. Uh, you talk about so passionately about your mentor, Debbie. My last question for your professional journey round, what advice would give you to an aspiring privacy professional looking to carve out a successful career in this rapidly growing field internationally?
Be the best, don't be mediocre, don't settle. Find the best mentors, find the best people in the industry, connect with them, and just focus on being the best that you can be. You're not going to become the best overnight, but what you need to do is focus on Kaizen and quality and continuous improvement. And so understand your purpose, like figure out why you're doing this. You're not going to wake up every single day and get 1% better if you don't even know why you're doing it. So before you even think about becoming a privacy professional or whatever it is you want to do in your career, you want to make sure that you understand how that connects with whatever your purpose is. And if you don't know what your purpose is, you can make a decision to say, this is my purpose, try it on and give it a go. And in 5 years' time, if you decide, you know what, I'm no longer aligned with that and I want to change my purpose, well, guess what? There's no rules, there's no tax to pay, there's no fees for changing your purpose. So what I say is the first thing you need to do is focus on what is your purpose and then say, okay, I want to get into privacy. Why do I want to get into privacy professional? What contribution can I make? What is the value that I want to bring? What is the impact I want to have? Because the moment you get clear on those things, every day you're going to wake up, you're going to feel motivated, you're going to feel pumped. And even if things aren't going your way every single day, you will know that it's more important because the greater goal, your reason why, is more powerful. And one of the things you hear a lot of people say, in fact, so many of my mentors have told me this, is when your why is powerful enough, the hows will come for themselves. The motivation will come for themselves. Doing that one more thing, reading that extra article, commenting and reading that one extra blog post is actually going to go a long way. Listening to that podcast instead of scrolling mindlessly on social media as you're going to work, all of those things will start coming for themselves because you know you want to be the best at what you do, and you know you have strong enough reason why you want to do those things. And when you focus on it, you will see that the value that you can bring to the world, you have no permission to deny the world of that, because that's the greatness that you're going to bring to the world. And at the moment you tap into that, all of the other answers will get taken care of. And what I often say is do your best and God will take care of the rest. But don't try and think that you can figure it all out, because your best level of thinking has got you to where you are now. And if you want to get to the next level, you need to expand that and you need to find the right people who have been there, done it before, who can also guide you to reach those heights too.
Interesting. So now let's go to the next round, the personal round. We'd like to know Jamal as a person. So my first question, Jamal, Tell us something about your family and your growing up years.
Something about my family and my growing up years. So growing up, we grew up. When I was born, I was actually born in Manchester, just outside of Manchester. And so my mum was there, and we used to live with my grandparents. My dad was still in Bangladesh. So my mum is originally born in Bangladesh. She was here for a few years. I think she did a little bit of high school education, nothing more than that. My dad was in Bangladesh, and so I think when I was about 2 years old, he got himself over to the UK, and then he decided we're going to move to London. And so coming from that background where both my parents haven't been educated here, they haven't been through the education system here, they don't have a lot of wealth. Actually, we were always pretty much, I remember my childhood around the poverty line or below the poverty line. We used to live in the East End of London. And in fact, I used to live in an estate called Ocean Estate that was so bad that the government decided to knock it down and build it all up again. And the challenge was growing up, when I looked around me, the people that were successful or who appeared to be successful, the people with the nice cars, the nice clothes, that seemed to have a lot of money, were always doing the wrong things. They were people that were criminals. They were people that were involved in selling drugs. And so that was my reality. It wasn't very uncommon for the police to be coming and raiding some of my neighbors pretty much every week. People were getting stabbed all the time, lots of gang fights. And, the most disturbing thing I found now is you know how different posts they have, like these postcode wars. So I used to live in an area called Stepney Green, and the kids there, they had like a gang, or everyone aspired to be part of the Stepney gang, and it was STP, right? And STP stood for Stepney Thug Passion. And so you've got a bunch of kids and teenagers who are growing up writing STP, branding STP everywhere, thinking and rapping about STP, and what they're saying to themselves is, I'm passionate about being a thug. And so that was the reality I grew up in. And had it not been for the mindset coaching, had it not been for my parents' upbringing and their direction and saving us from that, I have no right to actually be where I am right now. All of the people I grew up with, they either spent time in prison on drugs, taking drugs, or in very manual, low-income roles without making much of a contribution. There wasn't that many kids that I grew up with that even actually went to university and decided to invest in themselves going forward. So how do you go from there to where I am right now, where you see me on stages with some of the best people in the industry, you see me on the BBC, you see my book everywhere? First of all, thanks to God. But I would say after the favors from God and my parents' guidance, it comes down to the mindset. I had to think outside of that mindset. I had to change my mindset and go and play and be on a different level. And this is why I'm so passionate about anyone I speak with about saying the power of mindset. Like, you don't know how transformative it could be. Like, it's completely changed the direction and the trajectory of my life. And as a result, it's going to change the trajectory of the people around me. Because when you go and you be great, you give permission to other people to be great. And this is the challenge in our industry, is when you look at the panels, when you look at the conferences, is we don't see people that look like us. And when you're young and you're impressionable, if you have nobody to look up to that looks like you don't believe that is for you. And so that's what I'm really passionate about, is making sure that people from minority backgrounds, people like me and you, we actually have role models and we see a version of ourselves or something that we can relate to that is in the highest positions of the industry. And that's what really drives me, is to make sure that we increase the diversity, bring people in, but give more people permission to say, hey, this is for you. You can do this. It's not just reserved for a certain type of people. And it doesn't matter what your upbringing was. It doesn't matter where your parents come from. It doesn't matter what happened to you growing up. You can take action now and you can change the trajectory of your life too. And I want to help as many people do that as possible.
Wow. So now let's look at your creative interest.
My creative interest? What do you mean by that?
Your hobbies, your passion. I can see you're very passionate about privacy, but there will be some other things in a personal life which you're also passionate about.
Yeah, so I haven't been as active as I'd like to be, but I love team sports, so I love football. I also like a bit of badminton. I prefer singles over doubles because I get a better workout. So when it comes to sports, those are two things. I love reading. Like I love reading, and I think one of the things that I was really passionate and I remain passionate about, and one of the things that really helped me when I was younger was that I would love reading books. And I think reading those books helped me to escape from the doom and gloom of the reality of the environment I found myself in and get lost in different environments and actually learn different things and see, hang on, this is this reality that I see when I open my front door. That's not the world. The world is so much more than that. The world is so much greater than that. And I think reading those books actually helped me. So I love reading books. You'll always see me with books. I mean, you can see I've got a bunch of books behind me here, but then I've
Yes,
got
yes.
more books in my car. I've got more books in my bag. I have books everywhere because I really love reading books. So would say I love reading books. I love spending time with my daughter. And I love doing new things. Like my family think I'm a little bit crazy. So I'm always someone that say, okay, let's go and do this randomly. So if someone says, hey, have you ever jumped out of a plane before? I'll be like, no. And then next week, I'm actually going to do it. So I love experiencing new things. I also love my food. So I like experiencing different cuisine. I like to see how people cook, but how that food actually is a reflection of their culture. Because one of the things as South Asians is food is very important for us. That's how we
Yes,
socialize, that's how we connect, that's how we show love, that's how we show appreciation, almost to the point where we give people more food than is good for their health, right? But that's the way our culture works. And so what I want
yes.
to understand is how food works in different cultures, which means I also get to taste all of the different cuisines, but it's actually really, really interesting. And the more I dive deeper into that, the more interesting and fascinating it actually becomes.
Wow, interesting. So now my next question will be also very interesting for you. Could you share a cherished family tradition or memory that holds special significance in your life?
Ooh, so my faith is in Islam and I'm Muslim, so we have Eid twice a year. And so my favorite family tradition is growing up, my mom would always make this particular dish on Eid morning. And I always look forward to that. And that is my favorite culture. In fact, what happened was word got out that that was what my mom used to prepare for breakfast for Eid mornings. And so you would see my extended family coming to have breakfast in our house. And then sometimes the neighbors would come. And so it became this thing where everyone comes. And it's stuck. So that was growing up, but now it's become kind of like a family standard or a tradition. And I think there was one Eid, my mom wasn't well and she didn't do it. Oh my gosh, the amount of disappointed people, including extended family members and friends. It was actually ridiculous. So we've adopted that as something wider. So now my wife, my sisters-in-laws, and my sister, they've all kind of adopted this thing as a family thing, and this is the breakfast that we will all have and share with our friends and share with our neighbors on Eid morning. So yeah, I like that. I like the way it kind of went from nowhere to something that we actually care about. Because who cares about what you have for breakfast, right? Like I don't know what I had for breakfast 2 days ago. Most people don't. But this thing became a way of actually showing appreciation, connecting with people, and actually having people come and appreciate my mom for something that she always does, often without much appreciation. And so that really stood out for me. It's like just how something so simple can become quite powerful when you actually lean into it.
Interesting. Yeah, there are many, food is one of the binding factor among communities, among families, with it mean, and that's why food business thrives. So now, Jamal, uh, let's hear about your closest friends and how did they impact in your career, in your personal and professional life.
Please repeat the question.
Let's hear about your closest friends. How did they support you, and how do you interact with them on a regular basis?
My closest friend. That's a very good question. So a long time ago, one of my mentors said to me is, if I look at the 5 people that you spend most of your time with, what will I learn about you? I said, what do you mean if you look at the 5 people I spend most of my time with, what will you learn about me? He said, you're the average of the 5 people that you spend most of your time with. And what you need to ask yourself is, are you bringing the average up or are you bringing the average down? Or are you the median? Are you maintaining the average? And he said, you always want to be in a circle where you're bringing the average up. And so, sorry, not average up. You're bringing the average down, which means everyone around you is doing better than you in the things that you actually focus on. And so since that point, I've actually been really focused on being very deliberate with who I spend my time with. And so there's 3 or 4 really good friends that I have that have been constantly there in my life. And other people will be there for a reason or a season. And family obviously is there for a lifetime. So I really am purposeful with the people who I expose myself to, who I let in, and also the people that I trust and the people I choose to support. Because if I care about someone, there's no holding back. I give it to them. I give them everything. And the friends that I have right now, they hold me to high account. A lot of people will tell you what they think you want to hear because they don't want to cause rifts in their friendship, whatever. But the great thing about my friends is they hold me accountable. And even if I'm trying to convince them of something, because I'm very good at that, they will call it
Okay.
out for what it is and they will say, no, that's BS. No, 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 that's not good enough for you. For somebody else, that might be okay, but no, we need to hold you to higher standards. And so I think that's the thing that I cherish most about my friendship, is they hold me to very high standards.
Wow, interesting. So
Yeah, I
now,
mean, it becomes a bit of a problem domestically when, if you want to go and complain about a domestic argument that you had, they'll always take your wife's side, even though you think they should be backing you up sometimes. So it has its pros and cons, but the good thing is they are very just when it comes to the decision making. They don't care if I'm their friend or not. They're going to tell me what's right and what they believe I need to hear.
wow. So now, let's go to your bucket list. Any travel place which you like to visit in this year?
This year,
Yeah.
oh, I love traveling. That's one of the things I should have actually mentioned. I love traveling. So I would love to travel to as many places as possible. This year, so we've kind of got a couple of plans. So we definitely want to visit Thailand. We definitely want to visit Malaysia. We definitely want to do a tour of India. So many of my team are in India. They're like, come, 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 we'll all go travel together. So I'm definitely looking forward to those 3 places. We want to go and do pilgrimage as well. So Saudi Arabia. So there's so many places on the shortlist. I couldn't say right now. I couldn't say right now. We haven't made any firm commitment plans, but I would love to visit every country in the world and
Interesting.
spend time in each country in the different areas of the countries, because when you go as a tourist and you're only there for a week or something, you only have a perception of that one tourist place, or if you manage to get out of that one city in that place. But just like if you came to London, it's not an accurate reflection of the UK. You have to go to Scotland, you have to go to Manchester, you have to go to Wales, you have to go to the
Yes.
suburbs.
Yeah.
You have to see those things. And I think a long time ago, I can't remember when, I got to do that with a country called Macedonia. And so I spent time in all of the different areas of Macedonia, and I experienced how things were in different environments and how things change and how people's attitudes change and the different things that they care about. And I found it fascinating. And ever since then, I've wanted to spend time in different parts of the same country. Now, obviously, we have work commitments. We also have financial outgoings. So I can't just go and do that. So I will often revisit the same country multiple times and stay at different cities and different parts and try and find remote pits where I can actually go and connect with genuine people. So, for example, I was out in Hurghada, I think in November, December. And so I've made friends with some of the locals there. And what I realized is in the UK, people will often go out for a drink to the pub, right? And so what the locals do in Hurghada is you go out for a sugarcane, right? You go sit in the street, you sit in the cafe, and you have sugarcane juice. I was like, oh, this is brilliant. This is amazing. It's very different to going into a hotel or going to a fancy restaurant with all of the tourists and doing the touristy food and culture. Is actually experiencing what it's like to be a local. So I love those experiences.
Interesting, interesting. So, welcome to India. Whenever you are in India,
Thank
you are
you.
our guest. So now, very critical question I want to ask. As someone passionate about privacy advocacy, how do you navigate privacy concerns in your own personal life?
That's a very good question. How do I target privacy concerns in my real life, in my own life? So what are the thing, what I have, or what we've done as a family is say, what are the things that we value when it comes to our privacy? What are the things that we care about when it comes to sharing our information? What are the things we care about when it comes to things being made public? And so one of the things my wife is very strong on is making sure that we don't do sharenting, which is stuff about my daughter in places. And so we have actually have that conversation where we know what we do want to talk about, we know what we don't want to talk about, and we know what we want to talk about in limited ways, and limited forms. And so using that as the compass and the guide, that's how we pretty much navigate and make every single decision. So when it comes to downloading an app, we know what permissions we want to give and not give. It's not something that we ignore, we don't think about. It's because we're very clear on what we value from a privacy point of view. And so now all of our decision making just falls into line and we're very in sync. And I think the challenge is most people never take the time to actually purposefully sit there and think, what is it that I value when it comes to my privacy? What is it that I value when it comes to the privacy of my territory, my home? What is it I value when it comes to me as a person, my physical privacy? What is it that I value when it actually comes to my communication and people listening to me? And what is that I value when it comes to my actual information? So when you actually take the time to think about what are the things that are important to you in those different aspects of privacy, and you're purposeful for that, and if you want to write it down, you can, all of the decision making becomes much easier.
Different aspects of privacy you explained. So people do listen to this privacy tip in personal life. Very beautifully you have explained. So my last two questions. What legacy do you hope to leave behind in both your personal and in both your professional and personal life?
So the legacy that I'm working on leaving behind is dedicated to my children. I'm not sure if you have heard some of my stories at all, but God blessed me with 4 children. The first 3, he took them back. He took them back when they were babies. And when that happened, I was in a very bad place. I was in a very bad place. And the only way I got out of that bad place was by philanthropic work, doing charitable things, doing things that actually have no benefit to me, but would support other people. And what I realized at some point was I don't want a career in the charity industry. I love privacy. I love what I do, and I can actually make a big impact. And so I decided the vision is going to be to create a world where every woman, every man, and every child enjoys freedom over their personal information as a legacy to my children. So that's the good that I want to do in the world. So when I meet them, I can tell them how I spent the time and what legacy I created in their names were. More recently, I've been blessed with my daughter Amy. She's about 2 years old now. And so I actually do want to create a world where she can go and travel and be free to live in without having any concerns about what's going to happen when it comes to her privacy rights with her rights. And the reason I'm so passionate about privacy rights is because when you start impacting the right to privacy, all the other rights, it's like a domino effect. Privacy knocks over, everything else knocks over. So let me give you an example. If you go to a demonstration and you know that the police are going to be there with facial recognition cameras, you're not going to go and have your right to protest because you don't want them to profile you like that. You don't know what the consequences are. If you know someone's watching you and observing you and recording you going there, it stops you from doing that. If you know that every time you go to a religious building to offer to worship, to do whatever it is, someone's taking a fingerprint scan and sharing that with somebody else, you're going to stop doing that. And so when you know people are listening to your conversations, you stop saying certain things, you alter your behavior. And that's why privacy is very important, is because the moment we start observing someone interfering with them or disturbing them, we alter their behavior. And that's where the freedom goes away. So what we want to focus on is making sure that we are free to live the lives that we want by focusing on the right to privacy. And the reason why it's so important to have freedom over privacy is because once you have freedom over that, all of your other rights are there. The moment your right to privacy is interfered with or is, detrimentally impacted, it starts impacting all of your other rights too.
Wow. So now my last question. Describe Jamal in one line.
Crazy. Crazy.
That I can see that look is there. So let's have a fun round. That is a rapid fire round.
Let's go.
Yeah. Tea or coffee?
Tea.
Okay. Morning or night person?
Depends on the season.
Okay. Your favorite cuisine?
My favorite who?
Your favorite food dish?
Oh, my favorite food. Very difficult to say. I would probably say, what is my favorite food right now? Let's go with Thai.
Fiction or non-fiction book?
Non-fiction.
Okay. Your dream car?
My dream car. I don't actually have a dream car. It's strange because I was thinking about this the other day. It's like, what would my dream car? I don't actually care. Um, I don't have a dream car. I don't subscribe to such material goals. There was a time when you asked me in my earlier years, I could probably name you the 10 cars I wanted, the order I wanted them in, the color, the spec, everything. But as I've grown older, as I've had different experiences, different things are more valuable to me. And so I don't actually have a dream car or anything that I would dream of purchasing. It's irrelevant to me. Do I like nice things? Yes, of course I like nice things. It doesn't mean I don't like making money and spending money, but it's just I wouldn't waste any time thinking about this. It's not a thought that happens anymore.
Okay. Which is your favorite color?
My favorite color is orange.
Okay. And your favorite song?
I don't have a favorite song. I have lots of favorite songs, and it depends on the mood, depends on what's happening. So I have lots of favorites. I don't have one particular favorite.
Have you watched Bollywood movie?
Have I watched Bollywood movies? Yes, I've seen Bollywood movies. Let me share something with you. When I was in college, I was actually in a Bollywood dance group. And we actually performed for the city council at West Ham Stadium. So I used to be a Bollywood dancer. There you go.
Okay, that's interesting.
I told you I'm crazy, right?
So which movie from Bollywood you like to watch again and again?
I don't particularly like watching anything over and over again. There are some
Okay.
books that I will read over and over again. It's because, you know, when you move on in life and you go back, you have different perceptions. But my wife will make me watch Devdas over and over again.
Oh, interesting, interesting. So my last rapid fire question would be your favorite quote or mantra.
My favorite quote or mantra. I have a few. The most important one, I would guess, is asking yourself, who am I? Like, who am I? And giving yourself the answers and doing that every single morning. So reinforcing your sense of identity. So you're reminding yourself of who you are and how you want to show up in the world. And sometimes when people go through challenging circumstances, when things aren't going right, the reason they find themselves feeling so uncomfortable and stressed and overwhelmed is because they forget who they are or who they're supposed to be. And they're like, who am I even? What am I supposed to be doing here? And so the moment you're very strong and congruent in your identity, then the physiology of your identity comes easy. The language of your identity becomes very easy. And if you have those three things, part of the triangle, figured out and strong every single day, then you're going to have a great day no matter what happens.
Wow. So Jamal, you get this. I'll autograph this book and send it to your place. This title is From Niches to Riches, the importance of choosing a niche for your business.
I love that.
Yes, thank you. So, friends, we come to a lovely conversation ending. It was a insightful conversation on data privacy in global perspective. There are different insights he has shared about his company name, Kaizen, his Japanese philosophy, Japanese ways of working. Do watch this episode, which will be uploaded on the Coffee Corner Show. Do subscribe, click the bell icon. You'll get updates on different episodes. We have got around 100 plus episodes with different subject experts, and look forward to another interesting conversation with another subject expert on the Coffee Corner Show. Thank you.